Venezuela, a lost world hidden deep in the jungle of South America. A country where entire regions are still isolated, preserved in their raw primeval state. Ancient Table Mountains rise straight out of the jungle. Their flat summits cut off from the world for millions of years. Water spills from sharp edges in impossible drops, vanishing into mist before it ever reaches the forest floor. Off the northern coast, Paradise Islands float in shallow, luminous water. White sand keys barely break the surface, fringed with palms and surrounded by coral reefs. In the Andes, tropical heat fades into alpine cold, and frost exists just north of the equator. In this journey, we're going to visit the wonders of Venezuela. From the streets of Caracas and the beaches of Los Roques to the most remote destinations that continue to hold their secrets. In southern Venezuela, unique Table Mountains dominate the landscape. These formations are known as tepuis. The name comes from the language of the Pemon people and is translated as House of the Gods. Locals believe that they are the home of the Mawari spirits. While similar formations exist in neighboring Brazil and Guyana, Venezuela contains the largest group of tepuis. Broad, flat summits capped by sheer cliffs rise 3,000 feet above the surrounding lowlands. They are the surviving fragments of a massive sandstone plateau that once covered much of the Guyana Shield. The rocks forming the tepuis were deposited more than 1.5 billion years ago, at a time when life on Earth was still in its earliest stages. Erosion gradually wore down weaker material, leaving behind blocks of exceptionally hard, quartz-rich sandstone. Ecologically, tepuis function as islands in the sky. Their steep, often impassable cliffs isolate the summit environments. Over millions of years, this separation has produced ecosystems with extraordinarily high levels of endemism. Many plants and animals found on tepui summits exist nowhere else on Earth. Among all the tepuis rising above southern Venezuela, one stands apart as their most iconic representative. Mount Roraima reaches an elevation of 9,200 feet above sea level. with cliffs rising up to 3,000 feet from the surrounding savannah. An immense, flat plateau covering roughly 12 square miles. Its vertical walls appear almost perfectly cut. Persistent clouds often cling to the upper edges, reinforcing its reputation as an isolated and otherworldly place. To early European explorers, the mountain appeared so inaccessible that it inspired legends of hidden life. These ideas later influenced literature, most famously inspiring Arthur Conan Doyle's The Lost World. The summit of Mount Roraima is unlike any other mountaintop. Rather than snow or forests, it is a surreal landscape of dark rock. Rain collects in shallow basins, flows across the plateau, and then spills directly over the cliffs, giving rise to countless waterfalls. Many of them are thin, silvery streams that appear suddenly from the rock face, dropping hundreds or even thousands of feet. But from the rim of Tepuis, water does not merely spill. Angel Falls plunges 3,200 feet with a free fall of about 2,600 feet before the water even touches a slope. Its source is the same mechanism seen on Mount Roraima. Rainfall collected on a flat tepuis summit with nowhere to go but over the edge. The falls originate from the Churun River, which flows calmly across the top of Tepuis before reaching the cliff. During the rainy season, Angel Falls becomes a continuous, thunderous column of water visible from miles away. In drier periods, the flow can weaken, sometimes breaking into separate ribbons or dissolving into mist before reaching the ground. As the water falls, much of it is dispersed by wind, turning into fine spray long before it reaches the base. What finally arrives below feeds the rivers of the rainforest, continuing the long journey of water that began on a stone plateau far above. The name comes from aviator Jimmy Angel, who brought international attention to the site in the 20th century. His aircraft famously became stuck on the summit of Tepuis in 1937. News of the adventure spread and the waterfall was named Angel Falls in his honor. After plunging down the cliff, the water continues its way along the Churun River. The Churun courses through a remote region where waterways become the only viable routes of travel. It is part of the larger Caroni River Basin, one of the most important river systems in the country. Fed by frequent rainfall, the river carries dark, tea-coloured water stained by organic matter from the forest floor. For travellers and explorers, the Churun has long served as the approach route to Angel Falls. Motorised canoes navigate its length. Moving upstream through narrow channels bordered by thick vegetation. The river gradually becomes more enclosed as Aoyan Tepuis rises ahead. Its massive walls increasingly dominating the horizon. With every bend, the landscape grows more vertical. Signalling proximity to the tepuis that gives birth to the world's tallest waterfall. After winding its way through the rainforest, the Churun flows downstream and joins the Cacao River. At this confluence, the narrow, enclosed river corridors open into a broad basin, revealing the next chapter of the Tepuis world. Canaima Lagoon is created as the Cacao River expands across a shallow depression in the ancient sandstone terrain. The lagoon stretches for nearly 2 miles. Its dark waters are coloured reddish-brown by decaying vegetation. Several major cascades that descend from low sandstone cliffs turn the lagoon into a natural amphitheatre of falling water. Though modest in height compared to the Tepuis giants farther inland, these waterfalls are wide and powerful. Nearby, along the Cacao River, just beyond the lagoon, lies Sapo Falls, among the most distinctive in the region. Here, erosion has carved narrow ledges behind the falling water, allowing people to walk behind the waterfall itself. This close proximity reveals the force of the river and the smooth, sculpted sandstone shaped by centuries of erosion. Beyond the rivers and waterfalls of Canaima lies the broader setting that binds them all together, the Grand Sabana. This is the geographical foundation of southern Venezuela, a vast plateau that forms part of the greater Guiana Highlands. Sitting at high elevations, it differs sharply from the dense Amazonian rainforest to the south and west. Wide grasslands dominate the landscape, broken by gallery forests, rivers, and the sudden rise of tepuis. Water is the organizing force of the Grand Sabana. And at the center of this system flows the Caroni River. Rising in the highlands near the Brazilian border, the Caroni gathers countless tributaries from the plateau. It then travels northward for more than 590 miles, cutting through forest and savanna, before ultimately joining the Orinoco River. Its waters are typically dark, coloured by organic material leached from vegetation and sandstone soils. Within the river corridors of the Grand Sabana, one animal is more closely tied to water than any other, the capybara. As the largest rodent in the world, the capybara is a familiar presence along the wetlands of southern Venezuela. Adults can reach 4 feet in length and weigh up to 150 pounds, with sturdy, barrel-shaped bodies and short legs. Slightly webbed feet make them powerful swimmers, remaining mostly submerged while staying alert. In the Grand Sabana, this semi-aquatic lifestyle is essential, as rivers and flooded grasslands provide both food and protection. During the heat of the day, they retreat to the shade or slip into the water to regulate body temperature. They live in groups that typically range from 10 to 30 individuals, though larger aggregations can form during the dry season. These groups are structured around a dominant male, and their constant vocalization serve to maintain contact in tall grass. Far downstream from the highlands of the Grand Sabana, the journey of southern Venezuela's rivers reaches its final transformation at the Orinoco Delta. Here, one of South America's great rivers slows, spreads, and breaks apart, surrendering its waters to the Atlantic Ocean. The delta that covers more than 15,000 square miles is remarkably flat, rising only a few feet above sea level. This minimal elevation allows water to flow freely across the landscape, creating a constantly shifting mosaic of river arms. Sediment carried from the interior, much of it originating in the ancient rocks of the Guiana Shield, settles here, gradually building new land. Seasonal floods reshape the delta year after year, eroding some banks while extending others. Freshwater mixes with tidal influences from the Atlantic, supporting mangrove forests, palm swamps, and vast wetlands. The Warao people, whose name means people of the canoe, have adapted their culture to a world where water replaces roads. Villages are often built on stilts along riverbanks, and daily life revolves around fishing. In the dense, water-shaped forests of the Orinoco Delta, the jaguar remains the undisputed apex predator. This powerful cat is the largest in the Americas, with adult males in the Orinoco region weighing up to 250 pounds. Jaguars are built for strength rather than speed. Their massive jaws deliver one of the most powerful bites of any big cat, allowing them to crush bone and pierce skulls. In the Orinoco Delta, jaguars occupy swamp forests, moving along waterways rather than established trails. Unlike many other large cats, jaguars are strong swimmers and are completely at ease in water. Flooded forests do not restrict them. Instead, these features become hunting grounds. During high water, prey species concentrate on patches of higher ground. In drier periods, jaguars patrol riverbanks where animals come to drink. Their spotted coats provide perfect camouflage among shifting patterns of light, allowing them to remain nearly invisible even at close range. In the northeastern part of the country, within the coastal range, Cueva del Guacharo stretches for more than 6 miles. Unlike the sandstone tepui of the south, this region is formed from limestone. Persistent rainfall seeped into fractures, creating a vast subterranean landscape hidden from the surface world. Massive chambers rise hundreds of feet high, while narrow passages funnel echoes deep into the darkness. Underground streams flow through parts of the cave, carving new pathways and continuously reshaping the interior. Stalactites and stalagmites mark areas where mineral-rich water drips slowly from the ceiling, building stone formations grain by grain. What makes Cueva del Guacharo truly unique is its most famous inhabitant, the guacharo, or oil bird. These large nocturnal birds live deep inside the cave, nesting on ledges far from daylight. Remarkably, oilbirds navigate in total darkness using echolocation, emitting sharp, clicking sounds. Off the northeastern coast, Margarita Island was long known as the face of Venezuelan tourism. Covering roughly 400 square miles, it is formed by 2 peninsulas connected by a narrow, sandy isthmus. Low mountain ranges rise to over 3,000 feet, dividing the island into arid hills, fertile valleys, and long stretches of coastline. Unlike the humid interior of Venezuela, much of the island is dry, giving parts of the landscape a desert-like character. Margarita has long been regarded as one of Venezuela's premier tourist destinations. A Caribbean jewel, known for sun-drenched beaches. In recent years, however, like much of the country, the island has been affected by economic collapse. While resort zones and beaches may appear tranquil during the day, problems caused by organized crime have become part of the reality. On the mainland, the Araya Peninsula is equally dry. The land fades into tones of beige and white. Rainfall is extremely scarce, often measuring less than 10 inches per year, placing Araya among the driest regions in Venezuela. Vegetation is sparse and adapted to aridity. Thorny shrubs dominate the terrain while large areas appear almost barren. The peninsula lies in the path of persistent trade winds that suppress cloud formation and rainfall. As a result, despite being surrounded by seawater, Araya remains parched, an environment where evaporation far exceeds precipitation. Vast coastal salt flats were among the most valuable natural resources in the early colonial Caribbean. This strategic importance led the Spanish crown to construct the royal fortress of Santiago de Arroyo in the early 17th century. The fort was designed to protect the salt works from Dutch and English raiders. Weathered by centuries of wind and sun, its remains blend seamlessly into the arid landscape. Stretching between the cities of Puerto La Cruz and Cumaná, Mochima National Park covers more than 360 square miles of land and sea. Steep limestone hills of the coastal Cordillera rise sharply from the shoreline. In some places climbing to over 2,000 feet. Over millions of years, tectonic uplift and erosion fractured this coastline into a maze of coves, headlands, and narrow inlets. On land, the park lies in a semi-arid to dry tropical climate with limited rainfall and long dry seasons. Vegetation mainly consists of thorn forests and cacti. With drought-resistant shrubs dominating the hillsides. This dryness gives Mochima a stark, Mediterranean character. Unusual for the Caribbean, where lush rainforests are often expected. The park also includes more than 30 islands and islets, many of them uninhabited. Access is primarily by boat, and the isolation of many beaches has helped preserve their natural state. On Venezuela's northeastern Caribbean coast, between the older city of Barcelona and the port of Puerto La Cruz, lies Lecheria. Its modern name emerged in the 19th century when the surrounding lands were used for goat herding. Local farmers supplied goat's milk to Barcelona, and the area became informally known as Lecheria, meaning place of milk. Beginning in the 1960s, large-scale planning initiatives transformed Lecheria into a purpose-built coastal city. Wetlands and low-lying areas were reshaped through land reclamation. An extensive system of artificial canals was constructed. Just east of Lecheria rises El Morro de Barcelona, a rocky headland that forms the eastern gateway to the Bay of Pozuelos. El Morro climbs to roughly 300 feet above sea level, offering wide views over the bay and the open sea. At its summit stand the remains of the Fortín de la Magdalena. From this vantage point, Spanish forces once guarded access to the bay. Set within a narrow mountain valley just a few miles from the Caribbean coast, Caracas is the capital and largest city of Venezuela. Founded in 1567 as Santiago de León de Caracas, the city is enclosed by the steep ridges of the coastal range. Rapid expansion came in the 20th century, especially during the oil boom years after World War II. Modern avenues lined with office towers transformed Caracas into one of Latin America's most dynamic capitals. But as rural populations migrated in search of work, vast numbers of people settled wherever land was available. The steep hillsides surrounding the valley filled with barrios, informal settlements similar to favelas in Brazil. These neighborhoods were built incrementally, house by house, frequently without legal land titles. Caracas has long struggled with crime and insecurity, driven by economic collapse and the rise of armed gangs. These conditions have earned the city a reputation as one of the most dangerous capitals in the world. Rising just beyond city streets, El Avila National Park forms the defining boundary between the capital and the Caribbean Sea. This vast protected area stretches for nearly 50 miles. Its steep slopes and forested ridges are part of the Cordillera de la Costa. El Avila dominates the skyline of Caracas. From the city's central valley, the mountains rise sharply to peaks exceeding 9,000 feet. Vegetation within El Avila changes rapidly with elevation. Lower slopes are covered in tropical dry forests, transitioning upward into humid cloud forests. This ecological layering makes the park one of the most biologically diverse areas in northern Venezuela. Unlike the towering Andes, these mountains are older and more eroded, with rounded ridges and steep escarpments. High in the mountains of Cordillera de la Costa lies Colonia Tovar, a settlement unlike any other in the country. Perched at an elevation of roughly 6,000 feet above sea level, the town occupies a cool, misty basin surrounded by forested ridges. Colonia Tovar was founded in 1843 by immigrants from the Black Forest region of southwestern Germany. For decades, the settlement remained largely cut off from the rest of the country, accessible only by difficult mountain paths. This isolation allowed the community to preserve its customs and farming practices well into the 20th century. Timber-framed houses with steep roofs and a European village layout still define the town's character today. From its earliest years, agriculture formed the backbone of Colonia Tovar's economy. German settlers introduced crops and techniques unfamiliar to most of the country at the time. And the region became one of Venezuela's most important sources of fresh vegetables, supplying markets in the nearby cities. Further west, another small village of Chuao is still pretty much isolated. Accessible only by boat or by a demanding mountain trail. Sitting at the mouth of a narrow river valley, it's backed by rainforest-covered slopes that rise to elevations of over 6,000 feet. Unlike Colonia Tovar, Chuao is known for its strong Afro-Venezuelan heritage, dating back to the colonial era. The humid coastal climate combined with fertile alluvial soils of the valley create near-ideal conditions for growing cacao trees. And cacao from Chuao has been regarded as among the finest in the world, prized for its complex flavor and consistency. From the village, a narrow road descends to a secluded bay facing the open Caribbean, with a broad, sandy beach. With no road connection to the outside world, the sea is the primary route for transport of people and goods. Fishing supplements agriculture, and small boats connect Chuao with nearby coastal towns. Located roughly 80 miles north of Caracas, Los Roques Archipelago is a vast coral system composed of more than 300 islands. Designated as a national park in the 1970s, it protects one of the best preserved coral reef complexes in the Caribbean. Los Roques is built almost entirely from coral and limestone. Formed over thousands of years as reefs grew toward the surface. As sea levels fluctuated, parts of the reef emerged as low islands, rarely rising more than 10 feet above sea level. The largest and only permanently inhabited island, Gran Roque, serves as the archipelago's administrative center. The surrounding waters are exceptionally shallow and clear. With extensive lagoons separated from the open sea by barrier reefs. Fresh water is extremely scarce across the archipelago. There are no rivers or natural springs, and rainfall is limited. As a result, human settlement has always been constrained. And permanent habitation remained minimal. Unlike the remote isolation of Los Roques, another tropical paradise, Morrocoy National Park, sits close to major population centres. Morrocoy's geography is defined by shallow, warm waters, dotted with dozens of low coral cays, known locally as cayos. These small islands rarely rise more than a few feet above sea level and are surrounded by clear lagoons. Mangroves dominate the sheltered interior zones, their roots stabilizing sediments and providing nursery habitat for fish. But Morrocoy is best known for its powder white beaches, many of them fringed with coconut palms. Offshore, shallow waters and coral reefs give the ocean its distinctive light blue and emerald tones. Beach towns such as Caracas and Chichiriviche serve as gateways to the park. On weekends and holidays, boats stream out toward the quays, turning the calm waters into a lively network of routes. In western Venezuela, Lake Maracaibo is one of the most distinctive bodies of water in the Americas. Although commonly called a lake, it functions more like a brackish inland sea, connected to the Gulf of Venezuela by a narrow strait. Covering roughly 5,100 square miles and stretching about 100 miles from north to south, the lake is among the largest in South America. On its western edge stands Maracaibo, Venezuela's second largest city and the capital of Zulia State. When vast oil reserves were discovered beneath the lake, Maracaibo became the operational center of Venezuela's petroleum industry. Spanning the lake south of the city is the General Rafael Urdaneta Bridge, one of Venezuela's most important engineering landmarks. Completed in 1962, the bridge stretches over 5 miles, linking Maracaibo with the eastern shores of Zulia and the rest of the country. Its distinctive cable-stayed design rises above shipping lanes, allowing large vessels to pass beneath. South of the bridge, near the lake's southern basin, occurs one of the planet's most extraordinary natural phenomena, the Catatumbo lightning. Here, lightning storms ignite the night sky on an astonishing scale, flashing silently on the horizon for hundreds of nights each year. This phenomenon is driven by a precise combination of geography and climate. Warm, moist air rises from the lake's surface and collides with cooler air descending from the Andes, generating persistent electrical storms. These lightning displays can produce dozens of strikes per minute, illuminating clouds in near-continuous pulses. In the state of Falcon, a true desert of shifting sand dunes stretches along the shoreline. Protected as a national park, the Medanos de Coro form a rare coastal desert environment in northern South America. The dune field covers roughly 350 square miles, composed of fine, pale sand shaped into rolling ridges. Individual dunes can rise more than 130 feet above the surrounding plain, constantly advancing and reshaping themselves. The existence of this desert is closely tied to climate and ocean currents. Offshore, cold water upwelling along the coast lowers sea surface temperatures, stabilizing the air above and suppressing rainfall. At the same time, the nearby Sierra de San Luis mountains create a rain shadow effect, further reducing precipitation. Annual rainfall is extremely low, placing the region among the driest in Venezuela despite its coastal location. Standing prominently above Barquisimeto is the Monumento Manto de Maria Divina Pastora, a striking work of contemporary religious art. Inaugurated in 2016, the monument differs from ordinary statues. It is an architectural sculpture of kinetic form. Built around a massive reinforced concrete frame composed of two parallel towers joined by a horizontal beam. Suspended within this frame is the image of the Virgin Mary holding the Christ child. Created from thousands of suspended aluminum tubes. From a distance or at certain viewing angles, the tubes visually coalesce into the recognizable silhouette of the Divina Pastora. The Venezuelan Andes is a contradiction carved into the tropics. Just hours from hot lowlands, the land suddenly rises, climbing toward cold air and thin skies. In Merida State, the mountains reach their highest expression. A world that feels closer to Patagonia than the Caribbean. Roads here don't glide, they climb, twisting through cloud forest and farmland. Villages cling to hillsides, and life follows altitude. At lower elevations, coffee bushes and fruit trees thrive in humid warmth. And beyond that, agriculture gives way to wind, rock, and grass. Above 10,000 feet, the landscape shifts into the Paramo. A high-altitude tundra unique to the northern Andes. Days can be bright and deceptively warm. Nights drop toward freezing. The ground is spongy with moisture. The iconic Frailhon plants cover the slopes. Their thick stems and fuzzy leaves built for survival in a place where sun and frost trade shifts daily. Overhead, the peaks dominate. Pico Bolivar, rising to about 16,250 feet, is the highest point in Venezuela. Glaciers once filled these valleys, carving lakes that still dot the highlands. Today, the remaining ice is scarce, rapidly retreating. Beneath the surface of instability, Venezuela holds something most of the world has already lost. Very few places on Earth can still claim true unexplored territory. Venezuela is one of them. Entire regions remain difficult to reach, not because they are protected, but because nature never made them easy. Jungle, savanna, mountains, and desert still act as barriers. And because of that, life here evolved differently. Yes, there are dangerous cities. Yes, there is hardship. But those things exist alongside something far older. A landscape that doesn't care about borders or economies. A place where the planet still keeps its secrets.